We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph and Meseches Taanis. This is Taanis Daf 19a. The Mishnah here continues. Let's say you have a situation where it's not raining in one city, but it's raining in another city. So Oso Ha'ir Misana Masras. So that particular city which is not getting the rain, they have to do the stricter kind of fasting. Again, they fast and they cry out. But the surrounding cities, Misanos, they fast, velo Masrios, but they don't cry out. Rabbi Kiva says Masrios velo Misanos. It's the opposite. Those surrounding cities, they cry out, but they don't fast. Rashi over here says, Oso Ha'ir Misana Misras, v'chol Svivoseh Misanos velo Masrios. Well, lefikach Misanos. The reason why the surrounding cities they fast is because because the city that didn't get the rain, they're going to go buy the grain from the city that did get the rain. So they're going to cause a famine in that city as well. It has a negative effect on the surrounding cities as well. That's why they're misanos. And the Mishnah continues, let's say you have a situation of a city where there's some kind of a plague, or mapolis. Rashi says over here, things are falling down in the wind, the walls and the houses. You have a city with this kind of issue. Osoir Misano Misras, again the same idea. That particular city fasts, and that particular city cries out. The Chosavivoseh and all the surrounding ones, Misanos Velo Masrios, they fast, they don't cry out. Rabbi Kiva says the opposite, Masrios Velo Misanos, the surrounding cities, they cry out, but they don't fast. And the Mishnah continues, Eizehu Dever, what exactly is considered a Dever? What's considered a plague? So Ir HaMotzia Chamesh Meos Ragli, let's say you have a city, has 500 people. V'yatsu mimena gimel mesim begimel yamim. In a city of that size, they have 3 deaths in 3 days. Zachar zeh, one after the other. Harei dever, that's classified as a dever. Pachas mikan, less than that, that's considered a plague. Pachas mikan, less than that, ein zeh dever, that's not considered a plague. Alelu masriin b'chol makom. Now, in the following things, we have to cry out in all places. Rashi over here says masriin b'chol makom imyuru baspamia masriin b'bavel. What it means to say is, let's say it happens in one location, they have to cry out in Bavel. But Bavel masrim baspamia. If it happens in Bavel, they got to cry out in Aspamia, vice versa. Kedektani time of Besefer, like it's going to say at the end, this is the kind of thing that it walks around the earth, it goes around the earth. And anyone who hears about it, even if it happens in one location, everybody has to cry out about it, that it shouldn't happen to them. These are things that can spread easily. Again, so the Mishnah says, so shidafon, Rashi says shidafon betvuos, that would be like a plague that happens in the grain. V'al ha'yerakon, Rashi says yerakon is choli, that's an illness. V'al ha'arba v'al ha'chasil, arba and chasil is like a plague of locusts, similar type of insects. V'al ha'chayara, also let's say you have wild animals that are killing people. V'al ha'cherev, or let's say you have sword, meaning to say you have soldiers that are going to kill and destroy. Masriyan aleha, that's something again that you have to cry out about. Because that's already considered a makkah that's moving around, it can affect anybody. And the Mishnah continues, there was a story where the elders from Yerushalayim, they went down to the cities in Eretz Yisrael, and they saw just the smallest amount, kimoli pitanur is the size, the smallest amount of shidafon. There was a little bit of a plague again in the crops in the city of Ashkelon. And they said they declared a Taanis in all the areas, same basic idea that the Mishnah just said. And furthermore, they declared a Taanis on the fact that there were wolves that ate two young children, 2 babies on the other side of the Yarden. They made a Taanis for that fact. Rabbi Yossi says, Lo al sha'achlu, the case wasn't that they ate them, ella al shaniru, but just that they appeared, these wolves appeared. Rashi over here says, first of all, be'ashkelon, Rashi says, Be'eretz Plishtim. Ashkelon was in Eretz Plishtim. Again, the point is, it happened in a different location, and still they brought it to Eretz Yisrael. They said that in Eretz Yisrael you have to have a Taanis. Again, the wolves are something that's a bad animal. It can go everywhere. Shaniru uvo be'ir. The point is, according to Rabbi Yossi, they didn't eat the children. These wolves, they didn't attack the children, but they just appeared in the city. The Mishnah continues at the Tudat, Salelu Masriyan b'Shabbos. On the following issues, you can cry out on Shabbos. Rashi says we're referring specifically to saying Anenu. Normally, you wouldn't say Anenu on Shabbos. Alir Shekifu Nachrim, let's say you have a city that's surrounded by non-Jews. O Nahor, let's say it's being threatened by a river. Ve'al Asfina HaMitarefes Bayam, also let's say you have a ship that's being tossed about in the sea. Rabbi Yossi says, Le'ezra v'lo letza'aka. When we talk about crying out over here on Shabbos, that can be for assistance from other people, but you can't do tza'aka, you can't do screaming out to Hashem on Shabbos, just like you can't do bakoshes on Shabbos. Shimon HaTeimoni says, Afal HaDever, the same is true when it comes to a plague. a plague as well. You can be Masriyan B'Shabbos. V'lo hodu lo chachamim. The chachamim did not admit to his position regarding this issue. And the Mishnah continues with the two dots. I'll call tzara shelo tavo al tzibor, on any affliction that shouldn't come on tzibor, meaning anything bad, Masriyan alein. Again, you cry out for it. Chutz me rov geshamim, except for an abundance of rain. Rashi over here says, shelo tavo lishna ma'al yonakat. This is just a nice language to say it. We don't want to talk about tsaros that happen to the tzibor, so we say tsaros that they shouldn't happen to the tzibor. In any case, the point is, on any tsaros, you're Masriyan, except for an abundance of rain. Rashi says, Merov geshamim lavka gon sheyard al irachas ve'al lo yardu. We're not talking over here where it rained on one city, not another city. Shasham v'adai shtein l'klal. In that case, they're certainly both as a curse. Kedamar Rav Yehuda, like Rav Yehuda says, Timoter makam moter shemekalkel tvua elakvar yardu v'torachem lefnei adam. The case actually is it rained, and it's a burden already. There was enough rain. Aval einon mekalkelin tvuos. But it's not ruining the crops. So the case over here is, again, there's like an abundance of rain, but that rain is not ruining the crops. The time of Mefarish b'Gemara, now the reason will be explained in the Gemara, Lama ein Masri, and why it is that we don't cry out. And the Mishnah continues, Ma'isa sha'amru lo l'choni ha'magel. There was a story where they said to Choni ha'magel, Hispalo sheyerdu geshamim, daven that rain should come down. Amar lehem, he said to them, Tzu v'chnisu tanurei psachim b'shvil shelo yimoka. Go and bring into the houses the ovens of the psachim. These are ovens that were made of earthenware. They would get ruined in the rain. He was certain it was going to rain, so he said, you better bring them indoors so they don't get ruined in the rain. Hispalo v'lo yerdu geshamim. So he davened and the rain didn't come. Ma'asa, so what did he do? Aga uga, so he drew a circle in the ground. V'yamad v'soch, and he stood inside it. V'yamar lefanav ribona shalom, and he said, Master of the world, banecha samu pneim olai, your children have turned to me. Shani ke ben bayis lefanecha. I'm like somebody who dwells in your house. I'm a ben bayis by you. Nishba ani b'shimcha agadol. I take an oath in your great name. Sheini zaz mikan, that I won't leave from here at sheterachim al banecha, until you have mercy on your children. Hischilu geshamim minatfin. So the rain started to come down slowly. Amar lo kach shalti. He said, this is not what I asked for. Elagishme boro shichin amoris. I want rain that's going to fill up the pits and the cisterns and the caves. Hischilu lerid bezaf. So then it started to come down in anger. It started to come down like a storm. Amar lo kach shalti. He said, I didn't ask for this either. Elagishme rotzim brachon adava. I'm asking for rain that's for bracha, that's for a blessing. So yardu ketiknan. So then the rain came down properly. At sheyetzu Yisrael Yerushalayim laHarabayis. It came down so much though that the Jews had to leave the residential areas of Yerushalayim. They had to go to the mountain, to Harabayis, to the Temple Mount, because there was so much rain. So bo v'amru lo, so then they came and they said to him, Kashem shespalalto aleim, sheyerdu, just like you daven that the rain should come down, kach esbalal sheyelchu lehen, so too you should daven that the rain should stop. So Amar lehem, so he said to them, Tzu'u ru'u im nimches even haton, go and see if the claim stone, if it's obliterated. This was a stone that people used to stand by in order to announce lost objects. If that stone has become obliterated by the rain, so then I'll daven that the rain should stop. So Shalach lo Shimon ben Shetach. So Shimon ben Shetach sent him a message. Sent him a message as follows. El mole choni ata, if not for the fact that you were choni, the great choni, gozarni olachanido, I would say that you deserve to be ostracized. Aval ma esalach, but what should I do for you? Sha'atam eschati lefnei hamokom, v'yosalacha ritzonecha. You nag HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he does everything that you ask. Kiben, like a son, shum eschati, I love if he goes and he nags his father. V'yosala ritzono, and he does whatever the son wants. V'yolecha kasav omer, it's about you that the pasuk says, Yismach avicha v'yimecha v'tagel yoldasecha. Those who gave birth to you, your father and mother, they should rejoice about you. And the Mishnah continues at the two dots. Hayu misanan, let's say they're in the middle of fasting, v'yardul hem geshamim, and the rain comes down. So kodem hanetzacham, if the rain comes before sunrise, lo yashlimu, they shouldn't complete the fast. The achar hanetzacham, but if it's after the sunrise, yashlimu, then they complete the fast. Rabbi Eliezer says, kodem chatzos, lo yashlimu. If it's before chatzos that it rains, then they don't complete the fast. Liachar chatzos, but if it's after chatzos, that's after midday, yashlimu, so then they complete the fast. Ma'isa shagazr Taanis below, there was a story where they decreed to fast in Lud. V'yardu lehem geshamim kodem chatzos, and this is what happened. The rain came before chatzos. Amar lehem Rabbi Tarfon, so Rabbi Tarfon said to them, Tzu'u v'achlu v'shasu v'yasu yamtiv. Go, eat, drink, make a holiday. V'yatzu v'achlu v'shasu v'yasu yamtiv. That's what they did. They ate, they drank, they made a holiday. Uvo bein ha'arbayim, and when the afternoon came, v'karu halal hagadol. They read Halal Hagadol, they read the great Halal. And the Gemara says, quoting the Mishnah, Seder Tanios ha'elu ha'amar b'Ravir Rishona. The Mishnah said that whole order of the fast that you do in the first parak, fasting for the rain, that's all by the first rain. If the first rain doesn't come, you go through that sequence of fasting. Urimini, but we have a contradiction from the following Braisa. Ravir Rishona ushniya lishol, shlishas lesanos. It says that actually the first and the second rain, there you just ask, and it's the third one where you start to fast. Rashi over here says, Revia Rishona Shnia Lishol Sha'afa Bishalo Yerdu Geshamim. By the first and second rain, even though it didn't rain, Lo Barishona V'lo B'Shnia, it didn't rain the first or second rain. Lo Ayu Misanin, they didn't fast, even though it sounds like from the Mishnah they did. Ela Shoel, and you just ask for rain. Bekashir Masnisin, now that's difficult to our Mishnah. The Katani Seder Ta'anios, Elu Ha'amr B'Revia Rishona. It says you begin the sequence of fasts in the first rain. Ubraisa Adadi, so therefore our Mishnah and the Braisa contradict one another, so how do we answer the contradiction? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda says, Hachi Kamer, this is what it means. Seder Ta'anios Ha'amr, Eimosai, Bizman Sheyatzer Revia Rishona Ushnia Ushlishis. The sequence of fasting that we talk about, that's when the first, second, and third rain go by, those times for the rain. V'lo yerdu geshamim, and the rain doesn't come down. Avol yerdu geshamim berevir rishona. Mishnah means to say as follows. But if the rain does come down at that first rain, v'zor v'lo tzamchu, but then they plant and it doesn't grow properly. Inami tzamchu v'chazru v'nishtanu. Maybe they do plant, and maybe it blossoms, but something changes about what's happening. Something seems to be negative. Masriyan alei and miyad. That's what the Mishnah means, that you cry out about that right away. Rashi over here says, Hachi kamar uchigon revir rishona shnia ushlishis. What we mean to say over here is that revir rishona shnia ushlishis to kule yora karile. That's all yora. To kule karile revia kach shamati. In other words, all of these things, that is the first set of rains. There were 3 rains in the first set of rains. And so therefore, what we're really answering over here is that when the Mishnah says that it didn't rain in the Revia Rishona, that's not a contradiction to the Braisa. Because the Braisa was talking about Revia Rishona, Shnia, Shlishis, Leazanos. That's exactly what we mean in the Mishnah. If the first, second, and third go by, and it doesn't rain, again, that's Rishona, Shnia, Shlishis, V'lo Yordu Geshamim, so then you go through the sequence of fasts. But again, if it, let's say, rains in the Revia Rishona, and then you have these other issues, then it's Masriyan Miyad. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Davka nishtanu. This is only true when there's a change in what grows. Avol yavshu, but let's say that it just dries up so low, so then the halacha wouldn't be true. Rashi over here says, Davka nishtanu, dechi nishtanu, vadehu d'masriyan miyad. If there's a change in the growth, in the food that's growing, so then you have to cry out immediately. You have to daven, and then it should go back to the proper growth. Avol yavshu, but if it dries, lo tzarach is not needed. The mikan v'elach lo yoel. The point, according to the Gemara here is, according to Rav Nachman, that at that point it's too late. V'utfila shav, there's no point in davening. Once it's dry, it can't be repaired. Afilu yavshu k'shein chitin, adayin daken, afilu hachi lo masrin. Even if it dried out, when the chitin was still small, still you're not going to be masrin in such a situation. That's what Rav Nachman is saying. So the Gemara says, Pshit, isn't that obvious? Nishtanu tanan. It says in the Mishnah the word nishtanu. What else would it mean? And so the Gemara says, lo no tzricha, it's needed. Do'okun. Rashi says, what's the akon? Sha'alu bekona sheniskanu ma'at la'achar shenisyavshu. In other words, after it dried out, there was a little bit that grew on the stem. There was a little bit that grew on the branch. So the Gemara says, Ma'u detema, what might you have thought? Aknasa milsi, that's something that's substantial. Kamash Malon, we don't consider that substantial. Rashi over here says, Ma'u detema aknasa milsi, dehoav niskanu ma'at, mispal mo'elhem. You think, okay, so it seems to have grown a little, so maybe the davening is going to help. So Kamashma of Nachman Dachna Lav Milser. Nachman's teaching us that it's not substantial at all. It's dried out, it's over. Lishna Achrina, Avol Yav Shulot Dimemela. Now Rashi gives a completely different explanation of the Gemara. It means that if it dried out, you don't do this crying out. Why? Because it's going to go back on its own. So according to this explanation, when it's Yavshu, it's for sure is going to repair itself, the exact opposite. And so then the Gemara says that seems obvious, Nishtanu Tanan. So the Gemara says, no, the Chiddush over here is Akun. Lo tzricha da'akon she'alu bekana, ma'u detema aknasa milsi, the kevan she'alu bekana, va'adayin lo bishlu kal tzarchan. So since it started growing a little bit on the stem, but it hasn't ripened fully, va'adai ilo masrin. So certainly if we don't cry out, sulo gadli, it's not going to grow anymore. In other words, maybe that's a further indication that there's no way we're going to have progress in this case, because here there was a little growth, but it didn't really ripen properly. So Kamash Malon Delav Milsi, that comes to teach us, no, don't worry about what happened there. The Afagav de Okon Akati Gadli Tvei. Even though he had the situation of Okon, still there is a hope, so to speak, that it's going to grow. And so therefore, again, it's going to just come back on its own, and you don't need to be Masriyan in such a situation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, V'chein shapasku geshamim ben geshem legeshem v'chulu. The Mishnah said, if the rainfall, there's a period of stopping of the rain for 40 days, then that's a makas batzores, and it's also a reason to cry out. It's a plague of drought. The Gemara says, my makas batzores. What does it mean, a plague of drought? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Maka hamevio lidei batzores. What it means to say is it's a plague that will bring you to a situation of drought. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman says, Nahara anahara, if you have from river to river. We'll take a look at Rashi over here. Nara anara bitsurta, that's the next word in the Gemara on the next page. B'she'ein tvua bi'irachas. The case is as follows. Let's say you have a situation where there's no grain in one city. B'yesh bayoros acheros, and there are in other cities. So then, ve'efshar lahavi mizela zed derech nar b'sfina. Let's say it's possible to bring the food from one city to the other through a boat. So again, the idea over here is that one location can have a negative effect on another location. That's kind of like the same idea of a mako hamavio lidei batzora. Sometimes something can happen that will eventually lead to a situation of famine or drought. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yotes Amud Beis.